All right, Matthew Fairburn. It was a long week of travel. It's nice to be back here in this chair. And I get an opportunity to catch up with you on everything that's been happening with this Buffalo Sabres franchise. Good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. TGIF. It's January 30th, 2026. The Baker Fairburn Hockey Show is back here. And my feet are so cold. And I have these big, thick socks on, and my feet are freezing right now. I should have put my slippers on, Matthew Fairburn, but good morning.
It is brutal out there. This winter weather is no joke, and the Sabres are heading down to Florida soon. They got to play the Canadians on Saturday, but they head down to Florida. They'll fly down there on Sunday, and it's pretty cold down there too. It's going to be like potentially below freezing when they're in a couple of these places. This cold stretch is sucking the life out of me, but it has not sucked the life out of the Sabres. They are still red hot.
Yeah, it was I was in Atlanta this week, and it was, I think it was like 15 degrees when I got there. So yeah, it's pretty much cold everywhere. Wherever you are, hopefully you're staying warm as you take in this Friday edition of the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show. I am Chris Baker. You can find me on X at Sabres Prospects. You heard his voice already in our little banter there. That's Matthew Fairburn. He's your Sabres writer for The Athletic. You can find everything that Matthew does over at theathletic.com/Sabres. Got some Bills coverage, got some Sabres coverage over at The Athletic. Get a subscription, in-depth articles, comprehensive coverage of your favorite teams, sports, leagues. Everything's over there. They've been building that out over, close to the past decade, I think. When did they start The Athletic in Toronto?
Was it really?
Yeah.
10-year anniversary this week. So
this week?
Right on the money. Yeah, it was like a couple of days ago. Wow. Maybe earlier this week or last week, Scott Powers, I think it was Scott Powers maybe, or John Greenberg, one of those guys that started in Chicago. And so they had the 10-year anniversary of the first story being published, and we had a sort of 10-year anniversary virtual happy hour thing. It was at some point this week, I think. So 10 years.
Well, congratulations to The Athletic. And
I think
get over there.
We're coming up on 8 this summer for the Buffalo branch, right? 2018, Josh Allen's rookie year. So
Rasmus Dahlin draft.
I believe it was. Pretty good time to launch, I guess, huh? Josh Allen's rookie year and Rasmus Dahlin, and never a bad time to launch a good product, I guess.
Well, get over there and subscribe to The Athletic. Read all of Matthew's articles if you are a subscriber. If you're watching this show on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the Sabres Prospects YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when a new episode is live. This podcast can also be found on Apple or Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And get over there and follow the show. Leave a 5-star review. All right. So catch me up, Matthew Fairburn. I was busy, like nonstop all week. I did get home and watch the game last night. I saw bits and pieces of the game, but I was kind of tied up with some other non-hockey activities on Tuesday. But let me tell you what I know about this team. They kept it going this week with a pair of regulation victories. They've now extended their winning streak to 5 games, tied with Pittsburgh for the hottest team in the league. Kind of fitting that they're on a little bit of a collision course here leading into the Olympic break, and that final game is going to be against the Penguins on home ice. But they went up to Toronto and demoralized the Maple Leafs. I think that's fair to say, with a 7-4 victory. Came back down to KeyBank Center on Thursday night and just kept it going with a 4-1 victory over the Kings. We could talk a little bit about those games if we want to, but at the end of this 2-game stretch here, coming into Saturday's game against the Canadians, I think the biggest thing is that this whole really like past 2 months of hockey is like a stunning turn of events for this franchise that was just desperately chasing the low bar of making the playoffs. And I don't know if it's like, I don't want to call it like a go big or go home mentality with this team, but they have belief. It's really clear. And it feels like that belief has led to expectations that go beyond just making the playoffs. Is that kind of, am I reading this right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that is pretty much exactly what Alex Tuck said after the game last night, and it was eye-opening to hear Alex Tuck say, "We're not just trying to get into the playoffs, we're trying to win the cup." And we've
Big
had
words.
we've had conversations on this show about I wanna say Alex Tuck mentioned the cup maybe last spring or maybe before the season, and we brought it up, like, that and Jarmo Kekalainen brought up the cup, and we talked about it, like, it's very rare for players to even mention it over the last 4 or 5 years, but this was the first time you heard it from a guy, and you could tell he really believed it. Like, he was talking about not just trying to squeak in, showing that they're a top 10 team in the NHL, which by a lot of numbers, they are. And that was the clearest sign to me of just how confident this group is. And look, they're 23 and 1 in their last 24 games. They've never had a stretch like this in the history of the franchise. So even though the Eastern Conference being what it is, they haven't really, you know, gained enough ground to feel comfortable. They still, Alex Tuck is talking about chasing Tampa and Detroit, not so much worried about who those wild card teams are. He did say Saturday Montreal's coming in, they're chasing us, and they're, it's going to feel like the playoffs, but they have set their sights pretty high. And when you're winning this way, I can understand why. I believe I mentioned before that Paul Maurice has even said he thinks the Eastern Conference is going to be kind of wide open once the playoffs start because everybody's going to have been playing a version of playoff hockey, a desperate brand of hockey to get to the playoffs, and everything will kick up a notch once you get there. But if you have a first round series against Detroit, why aren't you thinking about winning that and then seeing what happens, right? This team knows it can hang with Tampa. Tampa's more experienced. Tampa's been there and done that, but Tampa's played a lot of hockey too. So I think there is absolutely an incredible belief in the room. And stunning is the right word here. Like there's so many times the last few games where I've just thought, how is this the same team? Like, how is this the same season that we're watching? How has this all happened in the course of one season? Some of the conversations we had in October and November and early December, you know, the Alex Tuck conversation that we had after Jarmo Kekalainen took over. And I still see some people on Twitter saying like, "Oh man, you can't trade Alex Tuck." And I'm like, who is debating otherwise? Who is
Yeah.
saying that you should trade this player? Like that you would even think about doing something like that to this locker room and this team. This team's got to add and yeah, they have a pretty high bar for themselves. So it's all kind of clicking. Things can change quickly, but it's just hard to see them falling off completely when they're capable of doing this for 24 games. This is no longer a 10 game sample. This is a big sample size.
Yeah, so it looks like your story posted. We are aligned on this, and because I just brought up your story from last night, and you have Tuck's comments in there, but I just highlighted a word on my screen. I said stunning. You use the word jarring when reacting to hearing Alex Tuck say these things. And no, it's this whole belief thing that I talk about. Like there's a friend of mine for a while. He listens and watches the show also, and that word is not new. It's not something that we're just throwing out. The belief that this team has had goes back many weeks, and you've really seen it. You don't just stumble into being 23 and 1 in your last 24 games. The belief that it takes to get there starts much earlier in that stretch. But when you say 23 and 1, it's my mind goes to like Colorado, the Colorados of the world. And I think at one point, maybe not out of the gate, but at one point as they got a couple weeks into the season, they got into like a 23-1. This is like the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup, you know? And if you're the Sabres, hell of a lot better to be doing it now. It'd be better even to do it in like, March, April, really. It's how you finish. And that's not necessarily how you start, but yeah, sometimes it's hard to talk about the team when they're doing so well. Like I mentioned this to you before on the show. Like I'm not really used to this, but it's good at the same time. It's healthy. The other big takeaways for me this week, Dahlin hat trick, first career hat trick against the Leafs, 5-point night. They're continuing to get it from all over the lineup. Tuck has a hat trick, the third hat trick for the Sabres in the month of January against the Kings. Jack Quinn's going. Had his second 3-point effort of his season against LA with 3 assists. Things are starting to happen, but really I want to talk about Alex Lyon. Not a career high, but it was a season high, 37 saves last night. He's now at 10 straight victories.
Franchise record.
Franchise record. I mean, they're getting these contributions. I mean, we can talk about so many players. We spent a lot of time talking about Doan. Matthias Samuelsson now has a 5-game point streak. Had a goal against LA. Like I'm starting to they're running together a little bit for me. 3 assists against Toronto. Like it's all over the place. What is their weak spot right now? Like if you had to pinpoint, it could be special teams. It could be, you can have this belief and things are going well, but you're always chasing something to improve on. What do you think it is right now?
Power play is probably what you would point to, right? As still wanting a little bit more consistency there. I think as far as needs, we've talked about defensive depth being a little bit of a sore spot. Maybe
Mhm.
one more forward you would like to add to the mix in the top 9 or the top 6, preferably. But the way they're playing right now, to your point, they're getting a lot of, they're getting contributions from all over, and they're not showing a lot of weak spots in their game. I think their defensive game has been so solid, and they're so bought in to playing that way that was about as low stress as a 37 save evening can be for a goalie in Alex Lyon. I
Yeah.
think, Alex Lyon has been it was cool to see him get 10 straight wins. It's weird because it was interrupted by injury, and so it sort of snuck up on you that he had won so many games in the row, and I do think it is, in a lot of ways a team accomplishment, but he's got like a 1.8 something goals against average and 933 save percentage during that stretch. So obviously he's playing great. I think, we discussed in November, we were confused why he wasn't in the net, didn't get back in there, fell out of rhythm, I guess, and they went away from him, but
He was
you know,
working on something.
he was working on
I
something.
still don't know what that means.
I mean, whatever it
Whatever he
was,
was
it
working
worked.
on. Yeah, right.
I mean, so yeah, he was great out of the gate in October, wasn't picking up wins, and now the team is getting him the run support, and he's, you know, been fantastic. It was cool. Dominic Hasek happened to be in the building last night. It was Dom's 61st birthday, I believe, and tonight he's in town for a premiere of the documentary that's going to be coming out to the public on Sunday, I believe, February 1st. Um, so it's like Dominic Hasek, who's one of the goalies Alex Lyon idolized as a kid, is in the building, and he's doing something that Dominic Hasek never did for the Sabres. So, Ryan Miller never did it. Barrasso never did it. It was Jerry Desjardins whose record he broke. But Lyon is also sort of this voice of reason for the Sabres, right? He's the 33-year-old, the guy that's been around the block, the guy that's seen all these things. After the game Saturday in New York, he was talking about that sort of anxiety that he always has when things are going well, knowing that the lulls are kind of right around the corner. And last night he kind of said the same thing. He's like, look, he he got to talking about how tough that regular season was for the Panthers the first year they went on the cup run they lost in the Stanley Cup final. He was on that team and he said, the regular season was really tough and then all of a sudden things just started to click and he's like, maybe we're in that right now. But he was also on the Detroit Red Wings when they were in a playoff spot last March and lost 10 straight games and didn't make the playoffs and the drought continued. So I think he has some of that guarded optimism, some of that healthy fear baked in because as he put it, you never know which 2 points are gonna matter. You never know which save is gonna make the difference between playoffs and no playoffs or second place and third place. So good to have some of that healthy fear to balance out the unbridled optimism that seems to be spreading like wildfire throughout the rest of the locker room that they can do something special here. And that's the part that's crazy to think about because I think you and I have both been like, well, they haven't made it yet, right? They haven't gotten into the playoffs yet. They're, you know, it's a tough conference and we've just seen too much, I think, from this team over the last few years to, you know, wonder if the other shoe's gonna drop. But then you hear the guys in the room talk about, you know, forget about making it in. Like they're looking for more and it's like almost haven't even wrapped your head around that idea, right? Like more than just getting in. Like everybody, too many people around here have set the bar at getting in. And I'm not talking about fans, I'm talking about people in that building, or sometimes they've been afraid to do that, right? The standings weren't up in the room until Lindy Ruff got here. And I think at times these players sort of bristled at the expectations or the pressure that came along with it and definitely failed to meet the moment. I mean, they had a point in Don Granado's last season where it was like every time they could get within 2 points of a playoff spot, they lost like 6 or 7 games. They lost every game. It was like every time they had a chance to get close, they lost. And now this team has just blown through that. And I mean, goaltending's a big reason why, but there's a variety of reasons. It's a pretty complete hockey team and a fun hockey team to watch. Like it's a good product for people that show up to the rink here.
I think that the playoffs, that whole conversation, it becomes more real when you get the visual looking at the standings. So Sabres right now, 53 games in, 31-17-5, third in the Atlantic Division. The wild card teams right now, those spots are also held by teams with 67 points, Montreal and Boston. The Metropolitan Division, top three have 71, 65, and 65 points. So, there's a cluster there. But then when you look at the teams that are outside, it's Florida, Washington, Jersey, 59, 59, and 58. You have a pretty significant gap if you're the Sabres right now, it's a significant gap. I think, an 8-point gap, let's call it, between your spot in third place in the Atlantic and that first team that's outside of the wild card position with 59 points. It's that separation that we haven't really seen a lot of this year. You're starting to see, we've hinted at it. A lot of that separation that was coming at the bottom of the conference standings, teams falling to the bottom and crashing down. Really, there's only one team there, though. It's the Rangers with 50 points, and they're already really waving the white flag.
And I
But
think some of these other teams are like I see the separation as I mean, obviously New York's out at this point. They have left the dance of their own volition. I think you can kind of throw the Maple Leafs, Flyers, and Senators into that. I know they're only 2 points behind the Panthers, but they're now 10 points behind the Sabres, Bruins, and Canadians. Like 10 points is a lot to make up. Could it happen? Yes, but mathematically,
that's
heading
what I'm
into
saying. There's this
yesterday,
gap now.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a real gap. Like I'm looking at, I would honestly even New Jersey has a negative 21 goal differential. Like
Yep.
Jack Hughes, I think got banged up again last night.
He did.
So just not a really great hockey team so far this year. And that they have one more game played than the Sabres and they're what 9 points behind them. So I'm looking at Washington and Florida as two teams they're legit teams. Like we've seen them do it, especially Florida, but Washington last year had a really good year. going into yesterday, another thing to kind of illustrate where things stand, and this is going into yesterday, so the Sabres, likely improved their standing, but the Athletics playoff model has the Sabres with a 75% chance to make the playoffs. This late in the season, I can't remember the last time that would have
Mm.
been true. And honestly, I think their long winning streak in 2018, they might have approached this type of percentage early in the season, but that was fool's gold as it turned out. And it was sometimes there's teams that, with a big winning streak can, shoot to the top. That was also a different model. Like Dom has tweaked it since. So 75% is big time. It is fourth in the Eastern Conference, but the Lightning and Hurricanes are at 99%. The Red Wings are at 79%. The Canadiens are at 69, 67 for the Penguins, 65 for the Panthers. Everybody else in the conference is below 50,
Mhm.
including the Islanders 49, Blue Jackets 45, Capitals 42. The Bruins are still 32, which they're in a spot right now and look pretty good. But Senators 27, Devils 18, Leafs 18, Flyers 13, Rangers 1. So like there's big time separation in the probability here, and a lot of games left, but not so much. Like it's tough to make up 10 points in 30 games. The Sabres have essentially done that over the last 30 games. They've made up a lot of ground, but it's they're in good shape. And part of the reason why they're in good shape is the same reason we would talk about why they were in bad shape before, right? It's like the teams up top, you don't have to play 700 winning percentage hockey the rest of the way now. Like you don't have to go on a crazy heater to make it. But it is interesting to think about where things could shake out. To go in and beat the Islanders and then beat the Leafs, they almost really delivered the knockout blow to the Leafs season. Like coming into that game, people in Toronto were saying if they lose this game, it's time to sell. And that was the conversation coming out of that game, is that the Leafs season was basically over. And, they're starting to, like, if they beat Montreal on Saturday, I would think that their chances go above 80% in the model. Like, that is another big game. They get it at home. Then they play both these Florida teams back to back Monday, Tuesday. So there's a chance to really, really improve. Like, these next 4 games are all against contenders. It's a huge 4-game stretch. They got the day off here today on Friday, and then it's weird to show up to the rink and just like they just you're expecting them to just roll, right? Like they get the early goal and you're like, here we go. Whereas before they'd get the early goal and you'd think, here comes,
Yeah,
how are
you're
they
waiting
going to
on them to
find a way to blow it?
crap down their leg.
Right. Like,
Yeah,
and now it's
exactly.
just like, oh, they got a 2-goal lead. Like they're going to suffocate these guys. They're going to lock it down. And that's what they've been doing.
Yeah, the hay is not in the barn yet with this team, as we say. It's kind of like, let's get to, what is it, April 15th to kind of see where they stand there. But I mean, that's just given, but I mean, with each passing day and seemingly each passing victory with the Sabres, you just did the math, you just reviewed Dom's math. It's starting to become clear. But, can't assume anything with this team in this franchise. We've seen it all before. So we mentioned that, the 4 games now coming in to the Olympic break. It's going to be Saturday on home ice, Montreal. Hit the road for back-to-backs Monday and Tuesday against Florida and Tampa, and then they come back on Thursday and head into the Olympic break with a game against Pittsburgh, and then they take off for the break. Alex Lyon gets 3 of them.
I would think
And
so.
right?
Ukko Pekka is injured for at least a week, was the last sort of firm update from Lindy Ruff, which was Thursday. And you would think that means, right up until the Olympic break, and they haven't really had the Olympics conversation as of yesterday, but I would think that's going to throw his Olympics potentially into flux. We'll see. But good timing for Lyon to have gotten back healthy and to be in this groove. You do have to go with Ellis in one of those games, I think,
Mhm.
because on the road back to back against two tough opponents, and we've
Yeah.
seen some
Give him
overuse,
Florida.
maybe, right? The overuse catching up to Lyon at times and getting him banged up. So I don't know which one you go with. I It doesn't probably matter too much. Maybe it's the second half of the back to back that you go to Ellis with the
I think
certain
it's the Florida
energy
game.
he can bring. Um, the second half is Tampa, right? They play Florida first.
Florida first. I would actually do the front end, I think.
And have Lyon give you that energy on the second night. I could see that. Either way, I don't view Tampa and Florida really one game is more important than the other. I think Florida probably is because they're chasing, but they are in a position to kind of be chasing Tampa Bay too.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
they're, you know, not that far behind them. And can you imagine starting the playoffs at home? Like what that would be like in Buffalo and what that would, be like outside the arena and in the building to not just end the drought, but for that first playoff game in 14, 15 years to be in Buffalo. Like they've definitely got that in their sights. They're right there and clearly are not backing down from the idea that they could do it. And so yeah, that Tampa game's pretty big too. And then they come out of the break and they play Tampa and Florida again down there. So it's it's been a big game after big game, and that's going to continue.
Yeah, they got to map that out. I mean, so Colton Ellis did. He probably wants another crack at Florida at a personal level. He had that game on January 12th that Florida just kind of. I just felt like they outclassed the Sabres that night. Just beat them to loose pucks. Maybe Sabres weren't their
Bad all
sharpest.
around. Yeah. Of
Yeah,
of this stretch, that might have been their worst game as a
he stopped
team.
28. Ellis stopped 28 to 31 in that game, and I wonder if that would make sense. I mean, it's not too far ahead. They have to map this out. I
Lion
think
beat the
that's what I would do.
Panthers early in the season. So,
Mhm.
there's that as well. He played down there, you know. They do have
Yeah.
the thing is they're gonna have to make a similar decision at the end of the month because they'll have a back to back. Presumably Luukkonen will be healthy at that point, and then he gets to be an option for one of those games, but they have the same back to back at the end of the month in the same order. So, you know, this is a real chance to there's a lot of I think an assumption all year that Florida will get it together, right? We've seen they're the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. They're going to find a way once they get healthy to climb the standings and get into the playoffs, but it's not a guarantee. I think they're what did I say? 65% chance in Dom's model, which leans heavily on past results like the past couple of
Yeah.
seasons. But they're 8 points out now. And if you can keep making life difficult on them, that's huge, and that's the team that you're probably they look the objects in mirror are closer than they appear applies to the Florida Panthers. I feel like more than any of those other teams that are outside of the playoff picture right now. So
Yeah.
they do have to manage this right, make the right call. And Colton Ellis, who played pretty well in Toronto, has to come up big for you. The whole three goalie thing is starting to come in handy, I guess, because they've needed these guys. Guys keep getting hurt, and they can't seem to keep all three of these guys healthy at once.
Well, we've been watching the goaltending all season long. It's a storyline to keep monitoring for Sabres fans and the club in general. Ellis comes in, stops 16 of 18 in relief of UPL on Tuesday night. So, yeah, I guess, we'll see. He's going to get one of those, obviously, in the back-to-back. I guess we'll just see how it goes, and we'll talk about it. Jordan Greenway. Before we get to Greenway, we're approaching 30 minutes in. Hit the like button. Hit the like button on this show. Jordan Greenway. What's the deal here? Never 100% this season, right? Pretty
No, I
clear.
don't. I don't think he's been 100% at all. I don't think he's been 100% going back to, I don't know, whenever he had the surgery, which was early last year. He had his first surgery. He had a second surgery over the summer, and this is the same core muscle type of issue that hasn't been quite right. And that is, I think, a really frustrating injury if it doesn't get right. I can't really wrap my head around. I mean, it's no fault of Jordan Greenway's because he's tried to get back in the lineup, and something about the surgery isn't taken, which is tough. Like I can't imagine having two surgeries. And the thing is, if you have a third, like every surgery that you have to try to repair this thing, it's like if you're having surgery on that part of your body, like you're putting more stress on the abdominal wall every time you do it. So it's like maybe it's just me speaking out of my appendectomy, earlier this season. Like it just like kind of sneaks up on you in weird ways and takes a while. So he can sort of play through it, but I think the fact that he's seeking another opinion now, he was skating yesterday before the game because it's like he can skate and, he's got to stay in shape until they make a decision on exactly what this is going to be. But the option is now there for long-term injured reserve as you get ahead of the trade deadline, thinking about opening up some space and being able to add to this roster. It's an option and maybe one they should consider ahead of the playoffs. Can they shut Jordan Greenway down and get him right before the playoffs? You can't, I don't think, shut him down with another surgery and expect him to be right for the playoffs. But can you shut him down and rehab and get the injury back to where he's comfortable with it? Because he's going to be an important, I would think, would be an
He's a
important
player.
playoff player.
Yeah, you're gonna want him around. And
At least as an
disposal
option.
in the playoffs. Yep.
At least as an option, right? But his cap hit would be kind of valuable at the deadline, to add to the team and maybe get another forward. It's interesting. We talked a lot about adding another defenseman, and I still think defensive depth should be an area that they address at the deadline. You can do more than one thing, right? But they've gotten through this stretch of games so well that it's like if they can get to the break without addressing it, then which at this point seems like they're going to do regardless, right?
It's incredible that they've had the success they've had without addressing it.
With Metza in like every game, basically, and playing pretty solid. Not getting a ton of minutes, but playing a pretty solid game.
Yeah,
So it's like if you get to the
Metza minute, I didn't do the Zach Metza minutes update yet this show. I usually do. Go ahead. I was looking at it this morning, but I didn't even write it down because it's mattered less.
No, because and Kesselring's back, so I think that's taken some of the heat off. And Kesselring had a solid game last night. I think he's feeling better. But yeah, if you get to the break, then all of a sudden you have a chance to get Kesselring right. You should have Timmins back shortly thereafter. I do still think another body there is important, but another forward would be really nice too to add to the mix. It is interesting when you have a team going this well. Like you even mentioned Jack Quinn at the beginning of the show. All of a sudden, I think he's got 9 points in his last 8 games or something, 9 points in his last 7 games. You're almost like weary of too many tweaks, right? But you have to add. This is a position that the Sabres have not been in, and you need options. You need lineup options. You need to think about the energy it would bring to the group. But you also have Justin Danforth might be back after the break. He's skating in full gear now and has been for a bit. So they are, but yeah, the Greenway thing is to me a spot where they have a chance to open up some room. And if he's going to be a part-time player for you anyways, it feels like if there's a spot that they have depth, it's in that fourth line rotation that we've talked about. But like Josh Dunn is still out. He would probably maybe post break be starting to get close. So that feels like a spot where they could afford to try to get Greenway right. You would like to have him as close to full form as possible for the stretch run or the playoffs if you get there. So
Look at the game last night at the end, and there were moments in the game. Some of those Kings players, pretty big guys, they were out there running around a little bit at the end, trying to get stuff going. That's the playoff type of scenario that you're going to see. And I don't want Peyton Krebs out there getting thrown around. And you need a Greenway type. It's not just that; it's his defensive play and things like that.
penalty killing, he's really good
Penalty
on the penalty
killing.
kill.
Yeah. I mean, he's more valuable, Greenway is, and a lot of fans are willing to give him credit for. I read the comments in the Athletic articles every now and then. It's just like nonstop. Greenway's got to go. He's got a target on his back because he makes $4 million. I get it. But let's not ignore his value to the group. He's part of that leadership cluster.
He definitely is. I mean, he's one of the guys on the penalty kill. Like he's really smart, and so you'll see him, breaking it down for other guys on the ice or in the locker room or going through scenarios. He's definitely valuable from the leadership standpoint. But I get the contract. Like it hasn't been a good contract. He's basically been injured the entire time since he signed that deal. He was injured before he signed the deal.
Yeah.
That injury popped up early in the season, so he was coming off that injury, and he's got a history of injuries. So the frustration over the contract is valid, and I get that, but especially at $4 million, all of
Yeah.
a sudden, this team is a team that cares about kind of every dollar. And I think even when they signed that deal, it was like, well, got to spend the money somewhere. But now all of a sudden, they could go into the summer and have. I don't think they're going to have their pick of the litter of players, but the conversation will change if they make the playoffs. Players around the league taking them off their list or considering it, right? With between the GM change and the results on the ice, I think they're going to be in a much different position to add to this roster. So a lot has changed since they signed Jordan Greenway, including the fact that he cannot stay healthy, and that's made him much less valuable to the team because he's not on the ice. But if he's healthy and if he's even 80%, like you do want him in the playoffs, like on your fourth line, killing penalties. And to your point, being that backbone for the team at times, which he is not shied away from doing. Kesselring's thrown his weight around though. Like Kesselring seems to recognize, we've talked about that ankle injury and that doing that type of stuff is not the best thing for the ankle injury, but I think he's so eager to make an impact and knows that because he's not 100% and because he hasn't been playing and he's not in rhythm the same way everybody else is, that being that point guy probably it's just like until that part of his game catches up, he wants to impact things in other ways. And he's doing it. He's throwing his body around. He's getting into it after the whistle. And I think there's part of him that also, like we were talking a couple weeks ago, and he's like, I've never been the fifth best offensive defenseman on my team, but like right now, that's just kind of the case. He's like, the competition is crazy, and like I've just got to find a way to make the impact wherever I can, and that's one way he can do it. And with Greenway out, having a big 6'4", 6'5" guy that's willing to do that is certainly valuable. It will come in hand on Monday against Florida, I'm sure.
Yeah. The Greenway thing, the number is the issue. You don't have to address it right now. I think if you're on this run, but yeah, you have to look at that number when you get to the off season and as it relates to the Tuck conversation, as it relates to the Benson conversation. And these are good problems to have. They are going to, if they make moves and kind of massage the roster in the off season, you're going to likely do so by removing a part that is working for you. And that's what good teams do. Sometimes you have to, you know, remove something that you're getting a lot of value out of to make the finances work. It's going to be really, really interesting. I mean, Greenway does become an obvious candidate there. My whole point is you can't just discard him because he makes 4 million without understanding the positive that comes with him being around this team and in the lineup. So that's going to be an interesting one to see how the Sabres maneuver through. If they use LTIR, you're not going to shut him down completely. I think I agree that you just have to have that tool in the shed come April, May, again, if you get there.
I
Right.
mean, if he needs another surgery, I don't really know how that all works. Like I said, a third surgery seems like a lot of stress on the
I
injury.
don't think it's on the table right now, given
And
no,
it
I just don't see it.
well, the only way, like, if there was a determination made that that was the best course of action, and again, I don't know how these injuries work. I don't if the first 2 surgeries didn't do it, would a third one really be, the right way to go? If that were to happen, though, like I said, it's hard for me to imagine him having that surgery in February and being ready for the
Well,
playoffs. So
that's what I
then it
mean. Like he had that surgery in December of 2024,
and then he
the
had it
first
in
one, right? And
July,
then
I
in
think.
July, but that one in December when he had it, he was out for a while. When he came back, remember how good he looked when he came back? But now you're almost, let's call it 2 months further into the season timeline. Like having a surgery now doesn't guarantee that he'd be back for
No,
playoff
he'd be
hockey.
cutting it close,
Yeah.
and so, maybe you'd get him for the second round. It'd be tough, but if he gets the right rest and rehab,
Hmm.
can he be a version of the guy? Because we've seen some good games from Greenway this year. They've been fewer and far between than a lot of people would like, but we've seen some big nights from him. He just hasn't been able to bring that often
Yeah.
enough. So they do have an interesting balancing act to play with the cap here at the deadline. And who do you remove? And but you have to remember that the competition and there's all sorts of ways like that this team can get better. And it's new to this Sabres team and this run they're on is so new that it feels delicate that, you don't want to mess with it. But you have to remember that the other teams around the league are looking to boost their lineups. The other teams in the Eastern Conference are going to be looking to boost their lineups, and that's the arms race. You got to keep up.
Final question. Um, yeah, that arms race, by the way, NHL trade freeze, February 4th, 3:00 p.m. through 11:59 p.m., February 22nd, and then the NHL trade deadline, March 6th. Not a lot of time to actually make deals with that big that freeze there for over 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. But final question for you. This came up this week. I'm not broad stroking the entire fan base. You can't do it. It's impossible to do it. But it happened again this week when I was traveling. Um, in the airport, walking actually yesterday to my car. Um, someone was just chatting and Owen Power, pounding on Owen Power. Is that a dead narrative at this point? I mean, I felt like it was unfair for longer stretches of the season. You can't argue his recent play has vastly improved all over the ice, but is that a dead narrative? Can we officially project nothing but good things ahead for Owen Power?
I'm always cautious about doing that, right? Predicting nothing but
Mhm.
good things, and maybe that's just watching too much Sabres hockey the last 4 years and, you know, knowing that these things can fall off.
And I
But
apologize, by the way, to the guy,
no,
but
it's not
but I
an
think yeah, yeah.
it's still pretty common to see, and I'm with you that I have seen a different player, especially in the last month or so, and seen really on the whole of the season and remembering that he came into the season coming off an injury, and a pretty tough one that probably impacted some summer training a little bit. and then got nicked up toward the end of the preseason. I think he missed a game right around the start of the season. He is so much better defensively, like so much better. And is the net front still occasionally an issue? Yeah, like there's still a little bit of room to grow there. Is he the most physical player on the team? No, he is not. You know, he's down near the bottom among defensemen in hits and shot blocks. So like that part
Mhm.
of his game, isn't going to jump off the page. But I think if you watch him, particularly on the rush, like how tight his gaps are, how often he's angling guys off, using his body to kill plays, how quickly, not just quickly, but effectively and efficiently he breaks the puck out. Like try to pay attention to those things for a couple of games and recognize what that does for the team, right? How that keeps them on schedule, how that limits their D zone time and increases their O zone time. There's still some flaws in his game, and he may never be that true number one defenseman. That like I don't envision him ever being as good as Rasmus Dahlin, right? But he doesn't need to be because Rasmus Dahlin's on this team. Like
I don't think it was ever even thought that that was gonna
no,
be
I
the
mean,
case because
Dahlin
he
was
was
a much
first
better
overall?
right,
Like,
Dahlin was
so
a
what?
much better prospect,
Yeah.
and I think you're looking at a guy that is a really, really good second pair defenseman right now, and he and Bowen Byram together have been really good. Like, Bowen Byram's playing great, um, and I think another case where breaking the puck out is a big reason why. You're seeing just a much cleaner game from Byram than
Mhm.
even we saw at times early in the season. But yeah, I've been impressed by Power. There's a lot more times that I just see him use his body to kill plays at the blue line before it even becomes, or even at the offensive blue line, right? So much of what the Sabres are doing in terms of, you know, hemming teams into the offensive zone and, increasing all this offensive zone time is the 5-man pressure. And
Mhm.
like Power is really good at that. Like Power's reach and Power's instincts in the offensive zone help him keep plays alive. And the offensive production is down, but it's coming at the benefit of his defensive game and playing a more responsible, all around clean game. So yeah, I also see too like a more we've talked about like the assertiveness you want him to play with, right? And that's been lacking at times even this season. But I do see a different confidence in the last month, month and a half, 2 months, even just around the group. Like he's
Mhm.
chattier, in terms of the banter on the ice at practice or coming off the ice at practice and, going back and forth with guys about what happened out there. Like that side of his competitiveness is good to see. Usually he's quiet, reserved, but he's definitely coming out of his shell and becoming comfortable with who he is. So
Didn't he toss, like, Krebs' glove into the stands during practice or something? Weren't
yeah,
there, like, any times that like
little stuff that like, and it seems like all the time coming off the ice, he's one of the guys going back and forth with somebody, or on the ice you see it, and so I definitely think there's a quiet confidence building in his game, and his teammates definitely are feeling that, and they have that confidence in him. I mean, that top four on defense, you mentioned Darlene earlier, like the game he had in Toronto, coming off his fiance, announcing the additional
Mhm.
heartbreaking news that we didn't, the piece of news that we didn't know over the summer that she was pregnant when all of that happened with her going into heart failure over the summer, and the baby was due to be born Monday, the day before they played in Toronto. So obviously a really heavy day for them. And he comes out and has that game and is really, I think, looking a lot more like peak Rasmus Dahlin lately. And you could tell what that meant to him and to everybody in the room to see him have, a 5-point night like that. And then, you just look around at the way Matthias Samuelsson is playing. Like,
Mhm.
and now Power's coming around and Byram is looking like the guy they thought they were getting, looking like that top 5 pick. It's the strength of the team for sure, is that top 4 and what they do to keep things going offensively and what they do to um, make the whole thing work. They're able to play that way because they have those 4 guys. Power's part of that group.
Marty Wilford's star pupil, maybe.
Got to give
Look,
Marty some credit the way some of these guys are playing. I mean, and even getting Kesselring going a little bit here, like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of talent to work with. Let's face it. He's got
my point on Power. Look, 23. He's a couple months into being 23 years old. That is a young human being, still, and I don't know. I think some of the folks that are still, again, I'm not broad stroking, but I'm starting to think that if you're still complaining about Power, you're just looking for something to bitch about because there's less to bitch about. And there's no perfect player. He's never going to be a guy that blows up guys. Listen, I know he's 6'6". He's never going to be that guy. It's like, I'll never be a guy that drives the ball 300 yards on the golf course. You going to bitch at me if I'm in your scramble foursome for not doing that? I hope not. It's not a reasonable ask. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to make me on the golf course something that I'll never be. You might be asking him to be something that he's not either, and trying to create that. But he's got a lot of value. He's had a lot of command. I've seen a lot of command from Owen Power with the puck, more so. And I think some of those other points that you make about the confidence when he doesn't have the puck on his stick, just on the bench, and it's signs that he's coming together. I think, look, at a minimum, if there were questions about someone taking on, 8.3, if you ever wanted to move him to make your team better, you would have a long list of teams that would be wanting to talk to you.
Oh yeah, for sure. At this
Okay.
point,
A long list.
the way he's come around, your point about not making him into something he isn't, like, it was exactly Chris Pronger's point when we talked last spring. He was pretty critical of Owen Power, but one thing he wasn't particularly critical about was the lack of physicality. The lack of compete was Pronger's bigger issue, and I think we've seen improvement in that area, but he's like, I don't know why you're trying to talk about, like, him, whether he should hit more. Like, he's never been that player, even in the
No.
USHL. Like, that's never been his game, but using his body in a smart way and taking advantage of his reach and killing plays, like, that part had to get there, and the competitiveness and the urgency, which still could go up a notch, has to get there. But it's not unlike the conversation we had about Zach Benson earlier in the week, that, people harping on a 20-year-old not scoring yet. It's like, don't come to conclusions about these guys before they're fully formed, before they're developed. And I think Power falls into that category of a guy that's 23 years old as a defenseman who's had a lot on his plate. And you're starting to see, I mean, look at Matthias Samuelsson and the conclusions that were drawn about Matthias Samuelsson. And, you could look around this roster. I mean, if you want to go farther back and talk about Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson and the conclusions that I'm sure were drawn about those guys prematurely, and now they're star level players in this league. So, yeah, I think if you're not seeing it from Power now, then I don't know particularly what you're watching. And to your point, maybe you're just trying to cherry pick things to find something to complain about, because there really hasn't been a lot to complain about. This team plays much more mistake free than they have at any point, in the last 4 or 5 years. That there's not a lot to pick apart over the course of games.
And I'm just calling it for what I feel it is. I'm not saying fans are wrong. Like, that's what fanatics do. Even earlier, on this show, I was just like, I don't even know what to talk about sometimes with this team, you know? So I get it. I'm not saying that anyone's wrong. It's good to have opinion. It's good to have dialogue. It's good to come in the comments and totally disagree with me. It's great for the algorithm, by the way, when you do it. So if you hate what I'm saying about Owen Power, if you feel like you're under attack by what I'm saying about it, let me know in the comments.
Well, and he's not
Please.
perfect, right? Like, we acknowledge that, and I think we've pointed out some
Yeah.
tough stretches he's had this year and some of the
Yes.
moments, like,
Look,
but the areas of improvement, like, these are not especially the exits out of his own zone, like, that is not a small thing, and it's a thing that's
command.
easy to miss when it's going well. Like Lindy Ruff said last week when I asked him about Power, he's like, "Well, we haven't been talking about him a lot, so that's usually a good thing, right?" Like, and he's been pretty encouraged by the progress, and you have to notice not just what a guy can't do, but what can a guy do? What is he bringing to the table? And he brings a lot to the table that's sometimes easy to miss. And yeah, like, by all means, hold him to a high standard and poke holes where it's warranted, but give him some credit too, because he's been an important part of this run for sure.
Ultimately, I would say that if there's folks that are still not on board, like what do they need to see? It's probably like what Samuelson's doing offensively this year. They need to see that, which we have, by the way. We've seen some of that from Power in the past, and we talked about it earlier this year. You know, when he was kind of maybe fighting it a little bit or still kind of find his way, getting a rhythm with the team. He wasn't producing the offense. Like, it's like if you're gonna have those defensive lapses, if you're gonna be a part of some bad plays that really stand out from the first 25, 30 games of the season, you better at least rack up the assists, score a few goals. And he wasn't doing that either. Now that the rest of his game, non-offensive statistics, like he still only has 15 points this year.
He's a shutdown guy now. He's a defensive guy now.
No, but it's like, I think the points will come with that, right? And then I think then he'll get more believers, and then
it's also a tough,
people
you're
will
saying,
pick up the low hanging fruit of like beating up Zach Metza.
right.
You know?
I mean, Metza has been, for his minutes, like, that's another just surprise. It's like, man, Zach Metz is still here. He's still playing every night. But you got to be careful. Like, people want the Matthias Samuelsson production from Owen Power. I mean, Matthias Samuelson's like a Norris caliber player, so we got to, you got to put the bar in the right place here. Like, Samuelson's all of a sudden, like, I mean, Samuelsson was ragdolling some guys on the Leafs the other night and had a 3-point night. It's like, he's really coming to his own. Cool to see, with everything he went through injury wise, that he's finally able to be the player that he looked like he could be when he signed that contract. Now it's looking like a nice little bargain. I mean, you're paying almost the same for him, and like paying less than you're paying for Jason Zucker, paying just a little bit more than you're paying for Jordan Greenway. That's not a bad piece of business by the former GM.
No, a couple more years on that too, right? And then he's gonna due for a nice raise. All right, Matthew Fairburn, we're coming up on an hour, and my coffee's empty. So I think you know what that means. It's time to do some plugs.
Yeah, people can head to theathletic.com/Sabres and read everything I've been working on there. We're going to keep it rolling through the Olympic break. I'll have, some stuff planned out I'll have a little bit of time off, but you hopefully won't notice it on the page, based on some stories I have ready to go to keep you busy with Sabres content through the Olympics. And good time to jump in. New coach for the Bills. Sabres are rolling. So theathletic.com/Sabres. You can find it all. You can do the
You heard him.
YouTube. Head to our YouTube channel, Sabres Prospects. If you're listening to this on audio, subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. All your friends that that are saying, man, like, I think I'm going to get into this Sabres thing. I think I'm going to jump on board. How should I, keep up with the team? Tell them about the Baker Fairburn Hockey Show. Tell them about the Sabres Prospects YouTube channel, and help us out, grow the show.
Matt really extended the plugs there. He took it to the next level. He's getting got a lot of plugs, a lot of color to the plugs there, Matthew Fairburn. You heard what he said. If you didn't, go back, rewind it a couple minutes. I'm not going to repeat everything that he just said, but there's a lot there. You can find Matthew over at theathletic.com/Sabres. So for Matthew Fairburn, for the production crew, who I'm certain agrees that Owen Power is nothing but good things ahead for Owen Power. He's still going to forget to tie up a stick here and there. He's still going to, shit's going to happen, but he's in a much better spot than he was a couple months ago. And I think that's the launch point for him moving forward. I'm Chris Baker. Thanks for making the show a part of your routine. Stay warm. It's going to be sub-zero, wind chills, all that stuff if you're in the Buffalo area. And we'll see you again very soon. 4 more games left for this Buffalo Sabres before the Olympic break, and we will be here talking about all of it. Have a good weekend.